Hope everyone's had their coffee today. Hey y'all, Mr. IKEA here with DYAD. Are you stuck in quarantine wanting to freshen up the decor in your studio apartment turned prison cell? Do you struggle to communicate your wants and needs to the loved ones in your life? Are you in therapy trying to work past unhealthy patterns of relationship power struggles as a result of internalizing the ways your parents displayed intimacy or lack thereof? Do you like sleek and affordable Swedish furniture? Well, have I got something for you. DYAD is an IKEA-themed AR game that uses augmented reality to augment your relationships. Get DYAD today and have a blast dropping IKEA furniture from the sky into a tiny apartment you can see inside your real tiny apartment. Play with a group of friends, a loved one, hell, even a bitter nemesis, and you too can learn how to decorate your living space without wanting to kill the person you live with. And now I want to introduce to you a good friend of mine. Come on out. Thanks, Mr. IKEA. Hi, I'm August, and I want to tell you about DYAD, but first I need to tell you why I made it in the first place. When I first applied to ITP, I wrote in my essay, I am passionate about interactive art because by definition, it can't exist without participation in life. It requires taking a risk, a transfer of energy, a sharing of physical and emotional space. It's one thing to sit in a crowd and watch a beautiful show and feel changed, but I believe when the audience becomes the medium, the change they are allowed to make in the art reflects the change the art is making in them. So these past 2 years, I decided to make it my mission to experiment with all types of interactive art to try to uncover which qualities led to the most positive change in participants. I took classes like Design for Discomfort, Joy in Games, and Collective Play. And by iterating on wild ideas, learning new technologies, and doing some preliminary thesis research last fall, a phrase emerged to describe exactly what I was after. Communal transcendence through physodigital play. Communal transcendence refers to the emergence of a shared power that arises in groups of people as they collaborate to overcome obstacles, exceeding the limits of what would be possible for them on their own. Physodigital play refers to joyful experiences between people in the same physical real-world location that use connected devices or digital tools to enhance that offline interaction. So this semester, I decided for thesis, I was going to make a game called Dilemma. And it was a very personal game about being in community with people who suffer from addiction. I wish I could go into more detail about it, but in the timeless words of Cardi B, coronavirus. When we went remote, I decided to pivot because I didn't think I could responsibly produce the delicate and intimate group facilitation that this type of intense game requires without all of us sharing the same physical world. Thus began the dark night of the soul in my thesis hero's journey. How could I adapt to these circumstances without sacrificing one of the core pillars of my idea, being able to share emotional space with others in the real world? Luckily, in my 100 Days of Making class, I was experimenting in a parallel dimension, creating phone-controlled multiplayer games in Unity, wanting to further explore physodigital play. Finally, on April 3rd, I decided to try to make that day's experiment in AR. A week later, I had the first prototype of my final thesis. So, in true ITP spirit, I took XR, the one ITP field that I hadn't taken any classes in, and decided to make it the foundation of my thesis, 3.5 weeks out from presentations. So fun. I had always dismissed XR because I didn't feel it was able to tick that ubiquitous and accessible box in my physodigital play handbook. But as I began to develop an AR and understand its affordances, I realized it was able to take a device everyone has, use it to create interactive and engaging content that occupies their real-world environment, and leverage networks to connect everyone together, even if they aren't in the same physical space. So I slapped together a networked AR game in a week and a half and spent the rest of the month iterating and playtesting day after day after day after day until my advisor graciously told me, your presentation's in 4 days, and here we are. DYAD is an AR game where players simulate being in a relationship and try not to break up while decorating their home with IKEA furniture they dropped from the sky. Players have individual desires of how the home will look, and it's up to each to communicate, compromise, and make the design work for both of them. Players start by taking a personality quiz that assigns them their very own unique assembly manual, a handbook on what makes them happy. It might say, you want more teal furniture than red furniture, or you want exactly one Tulsa in the bathroom. However, it starts out almost entirely blank because just like real life, you don't really know what you want until you try things out. It's only by trying to play again and again that you can learn and unlock new sections of your manual. And just like in real life, you typically learn a lot more when it goes really badly. Here we see two players cooperating to achieve simple goals. One player wants 4 oddwars, and the other player wants more oddwars in the main room than the bathroom. Each has access to a range of personal furniture that they select from the bottom left joystick interface. Then, by physically moving their phone over a spot in the apartment, they can then tap the screen to drop their chosen furniture from the phone into the room. However, when the goals conflict, that's when things can get really messy. The central drive of DYAD is about navigating the challenges of being an individual in a relationship. Both the puzzle of trying to achieve your personal goal by following your assembly manual and the challenge of communicating those goals to your partner and compromising when their goals conflict. Do you try to win yourself or do you try to make the pair win? What about if both or neither is possible? It's absurd, whimsical physics on the surface and deeply complicated power struggles at its core. I had my own share of struggles making DYAD, beyond just learning AR. First off, let me tell you, trying to send an app from quarantine to playtesters with iPhones when you don't own any Mac products, Apple just makes that process such a joy. Even so, I've been able to do almost 24 remote and local playtests with partners quarantined across the US. Another struggle was that the Unity physics engine is deliciously non-deterministic, which means even if I have furniture spawning in the same exact position and orientation for both players, they may fall and drop and bounce to completely separate spots. Luckily, this is about relationships, and in a relationship, you can be looking at the exact same thing and see something completely different. Most of my hurdles, however, were with how the game made people feel. I was hoping that by leaving the players in that semi-cooperative gray area and not explicitly telling them it was competitive or cooperative, that I was allowing for nuanced and rich player dynamics. But ultimately, I don't think anyone really cared whether they won or lost. By not pushing them to either extreme, I also wasn't giving them any motivation to choose a side. There wasn't anything at stake. But with my playtesters who are real-world couples, I got to see that this really is a microcosm of that classic IKEA relationship crucible, because when couples play, it clearly triggers a lot of old habits. I had a player say to me after the game, well, I knew he wasn't paying attention to my objectives, so I just went around him and tried not to let him get in my way. Or they'd say to each other mid-game, look, I know you want to bring this in the bathroom, but I don't care. You can do whatever you want in the main room with your 20 oddwars, just don't put any more shit in my bathroom. It's hard to make a game where you have to win by communicating without making a game that encourages yelling at each other. I realized I was creating something that made people fight, but not leading them out of the magic circle with any insights, tools, or lessons learned. When I playtested the game with my mom and stepdad, I realized I was lucky though, because unlike being like all artists who make art because their parents fought when they were little, I got to make art about my parents fighting in real time today. But I also realized that no one really wanted to cooperate. There wasn't that kind of shared exhilaration that you get when you're on a team, like say in an escape room. And in every single playtest I ran, the most fun people had was when they were messing each other's plans up by spamming an endless fountain of furniture. People wanted laser beams that could blow up their partner's furniture, to be able to detect hands so they could smack it out of the sky, anything to add more chaos and to crush their partner's hopes and dreams. And I think it was because in those moments, the pressure to be a perfect partner was gone. And the game allowed a way to ease off some of that aggression or tension with your partner in a silly, low-stakes environment. Games like these are blessings for quarantine families because they help us keep things in perspective. They remind us how to de-stress and have fun with each other. And they give us something to do now that Tiger King is old news. So ultimately, I'm not sure what the best type of game is that allows players to feel closer to the people they're playing with. But I do know that DYAD was one experiment that answered a lot of my initial research questions, and thankfully gave me even more questions to experiment with in the future. I'm also grateful for the pandemic because this challenge showed me that even when it feels like the sky is falling or that 17 ectorps are falling from the sky, that I can take a deep breath, talk it out with my loved ones, and decide to take a risk and turn a setback into an opportunity. But there are still a few things I want to do. I gotta play this thing in an IKEA. Either they give me a job or a cease and desist, both are fine. I want to implement a party mode with a polycule of changing partners. And I probably should make a strictly competitive mode and just lean as hard as I can into that delight of dumping a mountain of sofas onto your friends. I also clearly need a Roomba in the apartment. I'm excited to begin to submit DYAD to games conferences and conventions, but ultimately, I'm thrilled that through the process of doing my thesis research and producing this game, I've been able to hone in on that central core idea driving all of my interactive art, my game design, and my teaching practices: communal transcendence through physical play. I hope that this game allows people to reflect on their real-world relationships, gives them a sandbox to practice healthy communication, and through it all, allows them to play out the absurd millennial fantasy of owning a home. To bring it all home to my core theme, I hope DYAD is an experience that uses digital play to bring people together in the same space, provides them an obstacle to overcome together, and together that they leave feeling more connected, more powerful, and more alive. Because in these times when people are feeling so separate from each other in their physical environment, we can use digital play to remind them who they are, and through the power of communal transcendence, who they can be together. Thank you.
Woo!